Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to go over your third major writing project and the last one for the course, and that's the scholarly argument. So now that in the first two units, you've worked on focusing on kind of breaking down the arguments made by others, and then in the last unit, you've worked on making your own argument to a community about a particular issue. In this paper, you're going to be focusing on an argument for your scholarly community. So that is the, you're going to be writing for an audience in your field, in your major. So the expectations are a little bit different. So we're going to, you'll be getting a little bit more into what makes academic arguments in particular, and you're going to be modeling that for this paper. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be thinking about an issue relevant to your major, your field of research, kind of your intended career, and thinking about talking to people in the field. So this is a little bit different from the second paper where you're talking to a general audience. Here you're talking to a specific one with kind of very specific sets of knowledge. So your goal is to basically be persuasive in this paper and argue some course of action on an issue. Now that means what you could do is you might be saying, hey, look at this really kind of cool new development. We need to be building on this or doing more with it. You could also be saying, hey, here's this thing that exists and it's problematic and we need to do something to fix it. So there's a couple different ways to approach it. And a lot of that's going to depend on your field and your issue. So this, in being a scholarly argument, this is going to be more heavily research-based than either of the past two papers. I'm going to ask you to find a lot of scholarly research from your field and incorporate that into your paper. The kind of the style and tone are going to be different, as well as kind of the expectations. So your goal is to write for that audience in your field and convince and persuade them of your argument. So you will need strong sources to do this. This also means you need to really think about kind of counter arguments and alternative hypotheses for what you're talking about. So you can't just say, here's why I'm right. Here's why you should kind of be persuaded by my argument. You also need to think about what the counter arguments are and address those in the paper. Part of this too is for this third paper is you're going to be using the conventions and academic formatting for your field, which I'll talk about more in a minute. So ultimately, you'll see in the italics in the assignment sheet for this paper, you're going to be arguing to inform your audience of the importance and relevance of your specific issue and convince the audience of your views on the issue and or propose a feasible solution to it. So you're convincing and persuading the audience in this paper, which is a little bit different from the last paper, which was where you were arguing to inform. So since you're writing for these scholars, for experts in your field, your language and writing should reflect that audience. So they're going to know a lot of information that a more general audience may not. So you're going to be pulling a lot of outside information, but you also need to kind of think about what is common or general knowledge for the field. Some things you won't need to define for people in the field. The point of your sources here, like the last paper, are about kind of providing support, but here, more importantly even in the last paper, they're kind of the groundwork on which you're going to advance your own claims and your own arguments. So you really need to make sure you're using them as support. They don't take over your argument. You don't have large chunks. Usually I recommend maybe one block quote, but really you should still be doing that kind of same careful paraphrasing, summarizing, direct quoting that you were doing in the last paper. So you also need to make sure that you have a clear proposal of some type towards the end of the paper, and that shouldn't be buried in the conclusion. There should be 1 to 2 paragraphs before your conclusion to lay out whatever that course of action or those next steps are that you want the audience to take on this issue after kind of following your argument. It's important too, if this is a contentious issue, like I said, if it's not agreed on, you have to address those counter arguments, those other views in your argument, kind of say why maybe they're valid in some way or they're not, but address that directly. So to do this, like I said, this is going to be a more intensive research-based paper. You're going to need to find 8 outside sources. 5 of these sources need to be academic, peer-reviewed journal articles or book chapters. So you are pulling on that research from the field to support your claims. The other 3 can be academic sources. They could be kind of more general sources. A lot of that's going to depend on your topic. Again, I highly recommend the maybe library databases, especially, but not only Academic Search Complete. And so you need to make sure you have those sources. You'll actually be submitting an annotated bibliography, which I'll talk about more just a bit. We're all going to make sure you have the right sources and you're on the right track. Now, so for selecting a topic, so you want to make sure that this is again, like with the last paper, this is a topic and not a subject, so that it is current, it's relevant to the field, it is something you can present a specific view on, you're able to kind of propose some course of action or build on it. So again, it's something that should be debatable, controversial in some way, maybe. It's something that you can, that is kind of ongoing. So if you're presenting a resolution, this shouldn't be already resolved or shouldn't already be fixed. So given the length and scope of this paper and what you're doing with your research and everything, it's a longer paper. The scholarly argument is a minimum of 2,000 words in the body of the paper, no more than 2,500. And so whereas you wrote the first two papers in MLA, this third paper you're writing in the academic style used by your field. So that might be MLA, that might be APA, Chicago, Turabian, whatever it is. So you are responsible for figuring out what academic style your field uses and then writing your paper in that style. Otherwise, the same basic formatting should be the same, that kind of stuff. A couple notes on that. If you're doing, for example, APA, that means you're going to have a cover page. You will, so things like abstracts that a couple of different styles require, or you don't require, but can have an abstract, which you are welcome to do. That is optional, but just keep in mind that if you do an abstract for APA or one of the other styles that asks for them, that's not going to count as part of the body of the paper. So, but regardless, whatever style you're using, you should have your sources cited in the body of the paper. It should be cited correctly in your in-text citations, on the works cited page, the bibliography, whatever you need, the references page. So make sure you're following those guidelines. So the grading criteria you'll see there. Now this is a little bit more intense of a paper. I've devoted a little bit more time in the class. There's just about 2 weeks for this paper. Very quickly, you're going to be turning in your topic paragraph on Wednesday, June 13th. So I can make sure you have a good topic that works and you're on the right track there. So you will have an annotated bibliography as well. And that's kind of the next step up from the evaluative source list on the community-based argument, where in an annotated bibliography, you're providing the citations and annotations for all 8 of your sources. And actually in a separate video, I'll talk a little bit more about the annotated bibliography and the specific expectations there. But so the topic paragraph is 10 points. It's due on Wednesday, June 13th. I've got a couple days devoted to an activity and then a work day for the annotated bibliography itself. You'll see, so that Monday, June 18th is a work day for the annotated bibliography. The final annotated bibliography is due Tuesday, June 19th, and that's going to be 25 points. So, and again, like with the community-based argument, if you choose to switch some sources between the annotated bibliography and the final draft of the scholarly argument, that's fine. That's all part of the process. So, and then I've given you, in addition to the workday on the annotated bibliography earlier that week, I've just slotted Wednesday, June 20th and Thursday, June 21st as workdays for the scholarly arguments. It's a longer paper. It's going to require a little bit more time writing. I'm giving you a little bit extra time. So you'll have basically most of that week to be working on the annotated bibliography and the scholarly argument. So again, you'll have progress due on the scholarly argument draft. That'll be due by the end of the day on Thursday, June 21st. And then the final draft is going to be due Friday, June 22nd. So really, you'll notice this is kind of the culmination of what you've been working on the first 2 papers. And here, this is really kind of where you're going to be taking the knowledge that you've been working on in those first couple of units and apply it to writing in your own field for people, for an audience of kind of experts or scholars or people who are knowledgeable about the conversations that are going on that affect your field of research or your intended field of work. So as always, please let me know if you have questions in terms of finding a topic, finding sources. If you have questions about whether a topic works, if you're not sure where to kind of go to find sources or you're not finding the right ones, let me know. If you'd like to set up a time to meet about a draft or anything like that, via video chat, let me know as well. I'm glad to help out with that however I can. And then make sure, too, that you look over the annotated bibliography assignment and the video for that separately, because that goes over more on the expectations of that and what you need to be doing there. So check those out and let me know if you have questions about anything. Otherwise, I'm looking forward to seeing what you all come up with on this final project. Thanks.